Hello, folks. Hey, this is Terry, Chair of Trustees from the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police. Today, I have with me on the Facts Matter Moment podcast, I have Ike Hackett. Ike is the president of the Spoon River Valley Lodge, and that is a very large lodge geographically, and got quite a few people actually as well. They have over 19 agencies that they represent, and Ike, thanks for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Now, I know we want to talk about House Bill 3653, and your members and yourself, have some issues with how this thing went down. Specifically, of course, your own senator kind of turned his back on you at the last minute, told you he was going to vote for it, then flipped and went the other way.
Yeah, exactly. He, under the guise that he was not in favor of the bill as it was written. And then at the last moment, he caved, he voted for it. It's like, as I've heard it called, the Springfield two-step. And his big thing was that they removed qualified immunity, stripping qualified immunity from the bill, which is a half-truth. They, in fact, did not include that in the present bill as is written, but there was a task force or commission or whatever, however you want to label it, was supposed to report back to the General Assembly on May 1st with the recommendations either to keep qualified immunity for law enforcement or remove it. And
yeah, well, what's the name of your senator?
Would be Senator David Kaler, the Democrat from he actually lives in the Peoria area.
Okay. So for the folks that are listening, I want to make this really clear. He was against this thing. Then they said they stripped out qualified immunity so that would still be preserved. But in effect, it's only preserved for a temporary period of time. So they are putting together a task force. I think there's something like 13, I could be wrong on the number, 13 people on there, and only one of those comes from law enforcement. Amazing. Hope they don't do that with brain surgery if they ever decide to reform that.
That'd be true.
That being said, so when he says they took it out, they didn't. They just temporarily stayed it until May 1st just to get the votes to get this thing through. We all probably understand that. And that is called the Springfield two-step.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so the challenge will be, a huge hill. One person, I think that's executive director of the Sheriff's Association, is going to sit there for law enforcement. But hopefully it'll be better than one other small meeting he was in where they muted him. He wasn't allowed to talk.
Exactly.
So, this is real challenging right now. Now, qualified immunity, I know that the public doesn't really understand qualified immunity maybe as well as the law enforcement does. But, lots of governmental officials have qualified immunity. Your local plumbing inspector, fireman, if a fire truck would drive across your yard and just tear it up, they weren't doing that on purpose to hurt anybody. It's part of putting the fire out. So the department picks it up and they help repair your yard and stuff like that. They're do that for everybody else, but law enforcement got to take it away. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, and I think the good example would be what is transpiring in Colorado right now. They did this last year, and it's my understanding. I have not read Colorado statute, but Illinois legislation is almost word for word what Colorado passed. And I had a conversation at the gym 2 days ago with a young man. He's 25 years old. He works for our sheriff's department, and he told me, he's stressed out. Most of the deputies are stressed out after Governor Pritzker signed the legislation into law on Monday. That he told me that if they remove the qualified immunity, he and his family are gone. They're leaving Illinois and will look to stay in law enforcement. Fortunately. In the state of Florida. But when you look at a 25-year-old, he's got 3 years on a job, and he is a vital part of our community. They have children that are in the school system in Canton, Illinois. But we're on the verge of losing good men and women because Illinois decides that they're not going to provide qualified immunity for law enforcement. And the burden of the financial responsibility that will be placed upon our men and women of law enforcement who put the uniform on every day, who go out and serve in very harsh environments, and now it's going to be on their dime to defend themselves. It's my understanding that Colorado, the first $25,000 of each incident is going to be the officer's responsibility. And I mean, I could never afford that.
Right.
Nor could you, nor could any, which means that somebody could file a complaint against me as a deputy today. Next week they could file another one. So that's $25,000. That's another $25,000. So every time, that first $25,000 in Colorado is on the officer, and you can't do it. And they're going to drive great men and women out of the profession.
Well, to follow up with that, the Fraternal Order of Police State Lodge just completed a survey. And in that survey, just this law itself, 99% of the people, meaning the officers, felt that they were either financially or physically being threatened by this law. Now,
Exactly.
That's both anything. And people are not going to work under those conditions. This mass exodus will be underway. I think 60-some% of the guys were looking at either retirement or early retirement. I know Chicago, over 500 people put in for retirement, and they can't even process it that fast. New York, they had the same problem. And talk about crashing the pensions. You start having people mass exodus, it's going to cause a huge amount. But the really bad part is the public safety. I mean, good Lord, the person sitting in their house and somebody's breaking in, they call 911 and say, well, we'll have somebody out there maybe in an hour or two. We just really don't have anybody. That's the future if this thing continues on. And, what they're asking for is reform so things don't happen. But this is going to cause those things to happen, because if you get people in law enforcement that don't have the passion for the job, then they're in there for the wrong reasons, and they will make the mistakes that the professional law enforcement guys do not want to see.
Exactly.
And I even know that some academies, the instructors are privately being told, do not flunk anybody out of an academy because we don't have anybody to replace them with. One of the stories that I, received was about the Missouri State Patrol, as an example, a neighboring state, where they went on a many months of recruitment. I think they were going to do 150 or 250 troopers, something like that. They're looking for a big number of recruits. Sure. At the end of the time, you know how many they had that were qualified that showed up?
How many?
Four.
For
a whole state. Incredible. Now that's what we're looking at, folks, out there in the public. Do not be deceived by the lies coming out of Springfield, because this is the problem that we're looking at. Law enforcement knows it. We're living it. We're breathing it. We're putting the rubber to the road. We know it. And the folks that think they know it, and they don't, never spend a day in a squad car, never spend a day with a detective, are putting laws out there that are just not going to be effective. Do we want reform? Yeah, look at 1920 versus 2020. You do law enforcement so much differently than you did in the 1920s, 100 years. Who reformed that? Well, law enforcement did.
Exactly.
We found better techniques, and we are on top of that. The guys on the rank and file, they're constantly asking their chief, can I go to this new technology school? Can I learn this new defensive tactics method that's better, faster, quicker? And oftentimes the answer is no, we don't have the money. Well, this bill, as I see it, doesn't supply any money for that kind of desire to improve the profession.
Exactly. And, when you, even on Monday, when Governor Pritzker signed the bill, he tweeted out that the bill was rushed through without external input. And his quote, fact, it was the result of 9 public hearings, 30 hours of testimony, meetings with law enforcement, community members, and advocates. It also focuses on the needs of crime victims, many of whom support the bill. Terry, when you and I took the stand in a courtroom, we had to raise our right hand, and we swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And they get by. Governor Pritzker gets by with half truths. He announces that, fact is that law enforcement will still be able to arrest people tomorrow. Tomorrow, yes, but come July 1st at 12:01 a.m., July 1st, the law enforcement changes drastically in the state of Illinois. He talks about training that provides training, but they're all unfunded mandates, which relies on the local communities. Our largest city is Canton. It has a little over 13,000. Our county has, it's a financial burden. He says they don't defund the police, but in fact, they are defunding the police because they're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. Some area is going to have to give up the money. You can't print money, unlike the federal government. We can't just crank up the printing presses and have all kinds of money running out of our ears. So it is truthfully defunding the police. You look at body cameras, when you see the numbers, just the digital storage of the camera footage itself will be astronomical. And you can never, if I understand everything correctly, you cannot delete any past digital film from the camera. You have to keep it for evidence or whatever that can be used against the poor guy 5-6 years down the road,
Yeah, there's so many elements of this that are really problematic. And I'm glad you came on today. I mean, let's say the name of that senator that backfired on you. What's his name again? So everybody gets it and remembers it at the next ballot.
Senator David Kaler out of Peoria.
There you go, folks. Remember that name. Said he was going to do one thing, turned around and did another, jumped into a half truth. And well, we will remember. And I hope all your voters over there remember, because this is the kind of stuff that causes chaos in the state, and law enforcement is here to make sure there's not chaos. We don't want people hurt. We don't want to hurt them. We want to help them. That's why you get a profession. And so this is an attack on law enforcement. It's punishment legislation, anything I've ever seen in my 30+ year career. It is the most amazing piece of punishment legislation ever created related to law enforcement, and a huge, huge unfunded mandate. And I don't know how the cities and counties are going to be able to, stay with this, but we at the law enforcement, organizations and coalitions are going to do everything we can to educate our lawmakers that maybe were on the fence, didn't understand. So some of the trailer bills, we can start to clean this thing up. And
exactly.
I'll just point out for folks, if you don't think the FOP is looking for reform, they're took out chokeholds in this particular bill. Well, we did it 5-6 years ago, 2015.
2015.
Instrumental in doing that. We don't do that. This is where people have a complete disconnect between the people who actually do the job and the folks who think they know all about the job. That was already gone, and nobody was teaching at the academies or anything like that, and haven't for 5 or 6 years. So
I'm with you, brother.
Incredible.
Terry, when we formed our lodge, we got our lodge charter January 1st. When we formed this, we had our first organizational meeting in October of 20. And we made a decision that we were going to be politically active. And those, you were either for us or against us. And Senator Kaler is against law enforcement, and we will do everything within our lodge power to make sure that that is very well known in the 2022 elections.
And with 19 agencies, I suspect you'll be able to get that out there pretty well. And for all those who voted to assist law enforcement, that'll be known as well.
Exactly.
The average person wants to be able to take their kids and grandkids to the park and let them play or go outside and, till supper is ready, and not have to worry about, somebody driving by and shooting them or anything else. So there is tons of problematic issues here, and we don't like it. We don't want it. We know better because we do it every day.
Exactly.
So I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate your information and your support of the Fraternal Order of Police and your 19 agencies. I'm sure they're going to be happy to know that we're stating our business really clearly here. We're going to support the people who support us.
We agree with you, brother.
All right. Well, folks, thanks again for joining us for a Facts Matters moment. And we'll be back tomorrow with another exciting episode. Talk to you later.